Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the boardroom. We got a great presentation for you tonight. First of all, about the boardroom. The boardroom is an idea for people to get together and learn about business. Each session we have a presenter that comes in and presents a real business idea. However, we are not making a presentation to the general audience. The presentation is only being made for investors through a qualified prospectus. So again, this is for entertainment and education about business. At the Boardroom Live, it's also about networking. For about an hour before the event and after the event, we have a networking section. And Kimberly, come on up for a second. For the first time coming up on, you got a microphone for her too? Well, talk close to mine anyway. For the first time come on up. For the first time in 2 weeks, we're going to do a different boardroom that's going to focus on the entertainment industry. And that's coming up 2 weeks from tonight on the 24th. Kimberly, you want to tell everybody about it?
Yes, so we want to expand on the knowledge and education that you do at the boardroom. And we're going to be doing Hollywood Nights at the boardroom Tuesday, July 24th. This will be an opportunity for, again, qualified individuals to come and learn about what it takes to be in the filmmaking business. You will learn about original TV shows, about other original products, documentaries, and full motion pictures. And so this is for anyone who's ever said, I want to be a producer. I want to be part of the action. I want to be an investor. This is going to be your time to come and find out how that works and how we bring Hollywood to Texas.
Great other way to diversify.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Kimberly.
Thank you.
So the way the boardroom works, our presenter tonight, Jim from QuickShot, is going to be coming up and giving a 15-minute presentation. Then we'll be doing about 15 minutes worth of questions from the panel and tonight, the audience, and then we'll go to advice. So remember, Jim, you're not allowed to talk. I really chastise you if you talk during the questions section, but everybody give Jim a big round of applause. Come on up, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Evening. Again, my name is Jim Monty. I'm the founder of QuickShot Enterprises. I'm also the inventor of the Integrated Fluid Administration System. Our mission in life within QuickShot is to provide a tool for the veterinary world, the portion of our veterinary system that raises all of our food, to be able to administer fluids to them and document all the information you need to go with it. I'll end up getting into various things that will be going with that along the way. Also, I'm a mechanical engineer, product designer, have done 40 years worth of design, have 6 patents that I've had with companies that I was with early on in my career. Also have 3 patents that are pending right now. And the patent that is tied around the fluid administration system, I hold an international patent, a utility patent, and have that in 41 countries. So we've already done a fair amount of work towards tying that down. QuickShot was formed predominantly to provide the environment to be able to design, manufacture, and distribute a fluid administration system. We're going to be able to take that system and provide it to various areas within animal husbandry. The Top Shot system is the primary starting system. It'll end up being sold, and it'll have the disposables that'll go with it. We'll talk about all that here in a moment. The problem we have today is there are 2 devices that you would use as a rancher or farmer. One that collects RFID data on your animal. Every animal's got a tag on its ear, either hanging down or inserted in the ear. It is the identity for your animal. It's his social security number. Okay, you end up wanting to give that animal fluid for either medical reasons or preventative medicine. You end up having no way to relate the injection to the data. So the way it's done now is it's all manual. You end up not being able to have anything that ties the two together. It's all done in a manual form right now. Also in the process of doing that, you end up having a lot of opportunities for making errors. And with what we're going to do, you'll get rid of those errors, and it becomes a much easier task to go through. Also, one of the things that happens when you're administering to those animals, they won't sit still for you. The current technology has a bare needle, and if you get stuck with something, okay, you're no longer have to worry about black hoof or anything like that, because if you get stuck, you're taken care of, okay? The solution that we have is the Top Shot system, and the needle sticking thing, I'll show you pictures of the existing product right now. My device ends up having a little pressure ring that you'll apply to the animal, and the needle is stored back inside the handpiece. So while it's not in use, there is no exposed needle. If you were injecting an animal and you trip, it'll get sucked back inside. So again, it's a safe, needle hazard-free time. In doing that, we're collecting RFID data. We're applying a date stamp, the dosage that's given to the animal, the operator who's doing it, as well as anything along the lines of if you trip or move, you end up pulling a needle out too soon, it'll tell you to go complete the dosage. Also, it will prevent you from doing double doses on an animal as well, which end up happening, not regularly, but it ends up being a function that you need to prevent if possible. Also, the accuracy of what we're doing with this product is just as accurate as a human pump. I worked within the home health care world and designed pumps that are built around the same technologies. Okay, the benefits of the IFAS, the Top Shot, is it gives you a whole long list of things that are very, very beneficial to you. You end up being both safer for the animal because you're not wasting material doing the dosage. You're able to collect that data, which is a big part of the inaccuracies that are in the current system now. Give you an idea of what the system entails. It'll end up being a complete system to where you'll have a belt, a holster, and the pump that drives the system. You can mount it on your waist for a smaller location, but you can also have two of them mounted, so you can literally pull up two different needles and inject the same animal. So you can collect the data with one gun and inject the second material, and they're both related together. So at the end of the day, when you get to the end of your workday, that data can be uploaded and it ends up being a soft file that you do not have to manipulate in any way, shape, or form. If you're in a feedlot environment, they pump 1,000 animals at a time. They end up having a lot of material. So in that case, you'd end up having a backpack. You could have two pumps mounted in it, and you would have soft bottles of material in the pouch itself. So you could go as long as your day could be because you'll have material for the entire day. And here's an example of the tags that are on the ears that you end up, both the tag and they also insert into the back of the ear as far as a placement so it doesn't get torn off, which does happen. Okay, this is a little bit of a close-up of how the system is without having a pouch or anything with it. It has a battery, display to do the control type items to it. This is a small bottle supply. You again have the ring on the front of it that if you're sitting here pulling the trigger, nothing's going to happen. You read an RFID tag and you hold it here, still nothing's going to happen. You push it up against the animal, it'll do its duty. And the tubing or the cable is long enough to where you have a reach with the device. Okay, the market. We've raised food animals for centuries. Have had the slaughtering of our animals for food. And obviously, in olden times, you didn't have any control of how those animals were maintained. Fast forward into the present, we're doing a very, very good job of it, but there are things that could be improved, making it easier for the farmers, as well as the quality of meat and everything that we end up having. Lost my train of thought. Through the current system, all the farmers are having to raise the food animals on a much tighter margin. So anything that can help them be more efficient at getting those animals to market will save them money in the long run. Moving into the future, we want to be able to have the data that we collect off of these animals available for researchers, available for the farming industry as a whole. And you may have a way that you're handling your animals differently that's more efficient. You can pass that information on to the other people that are in your area. So what we have here is the competition. Well, guess what? It's not really competition, because they are not linking the data that they're collecting with the gun. These guns are all individual. They would have an exposed needle on them. You end up using it through the day. At the end of the day, you have to take that and clean it and go put it through an autoclave. So you have to handle it and expend energy to make it do its job. In the same way, you'll have a reader that you'll read RFID tags with. The two items are totally not connected in any way, shape, or form. So again, you have that position where you're not able to verify that an injection has been done, other than the fact that somebody went and tagged the RFID tag. Okay, market size. Ends up being a lot of animals. You'll see this by what we have here. The cattle market in the United States, as of USDA numbers, first of the year, is 94 million animals raised for food. Half of that's male, the rest of them are female, but they're all given the same injections, so that there is a requirement to give them 6 injections during their life in a feedlot. Another one is the pig industry. It's 74 million. Looking at just the pig market, 1% of the pig market is 7,000 of my guns, times 4 liquids, times all the animals that get touched, out of 74 million. So only 1% is 7,000 guns. There's also other animals, dogs, sheep, goats, kangaroos. We have an individual wanting to castrate kangaroos and want to use our device to do it with. A whole multitude of other animals, but the two markets that we're going after first are beef and pork. Okay, going through stage 1, for the past 4 years at various levels, I've been researching this market, trying to figure out what the competitor is out there, and go through why there doesn't seem to be automation to it. Our farmers are in some ways a paper pencil type environment for this particular thing. There is not another product like this out in the market. So we're going through that research, but we're at the point where now we got to place production tooling and get it into production, start up some additional products. We got 2 products in vision, one that has dual needles. So one person could literally stick 4 liquids in an animal plus do the RFID reading, all with just one person. That today takes 3 to 4 people to do the same function. So you end up having that available. Some locations, they'll go out on horseback or on an RTV and kind of stick the animal long range. So we'll end up having an additional product that is called long shot. So we'll have top shot, double shot, and long shot will be the 3 products that we'll have. As we move into stage 3, we'll be looking at what response we've gotten back from the market. We'll go to conventions, the beef convention in Vegas or whatever. There are lots of conventions where you can meet either major farmers or minor ranchers and farmers and get their feedback on what they need so we can improve and extend our market. In the process also we'll do an international market, Australia for sheep and kangaroos. You end up having pigs in Germany and Denmark. They produce 80% of the pork for Europe out of those two countries. Ireland's also got sheep as well. Okay, in going through our marketing plan, we're selling the unit as a complete system, and then we'll sell the disposables as recurring revenue to go with it. So you'll end up buying the gun. It'll have a 3 to 5 year life, hopefully longer. But what we'll end up doing is we'll have customer connection with the ranchers and farmers who buy the gun. We'll maintain it. They'll get 2 years of support right off the bat when they buy it, and they'll be continuing support after they end up buying the product. And then we'll do all the disposables that go with it, the needles and everything else that'll be used to support the guns themselves. It's like buying the razor and selling the razor blades. We're going to take care of both ends of what we're doing. In funding, what we're going to do is have a single phase of $2 million of raised funds. It will not be a diluted round. It'll be done once. We'll end up going through and using that investment money for buying all the production tooling. It ends up having 37 custom parts in the device to go through all the bits and pieces. So there's a fair amount to invest in all the custom tooling. We'll set up the assembly facility, do clean room requirements. We'll go through and build up our initial inventory out of that monies as well, and then do the staffing for the project in the beginning. So this is the Integrated Fluid Administration System. I'm very proud to be able to give you this presentation, and I appreciate the time, your time.
Thank you, Jim. And John, you're in the hot seat.
Are you generating revenue now?
No, sir. We have to have working production tooling to be able to get to.
You don't have a working tool right now.
We have a single prototype, a single set of prototypes, so we can do field trial work, but we're not selling those units.
And what will be your sources of revenue?
Selling the disposable and the gun into the pig market and beef market first. Like I said, 1% of the U.S. pig market is 7,000 guns, and that's about $14 million a year in profit. So we'll get recurring money off of the disposable that'll be supplied to the ranchers for the guns.
And who are your customers?
It can be a pig farm nowadays. A corporate farm is 350 to 500 sows. So they're making piglets 24/7. So you'll end up doing 150 or 200 castrations and injections into 4-day-old piglets all year long. In the beef world, a moderate-sized feedlot in Texas will handle 5,000 animals a day, 365 days a year.
They'll get the fluids from a veterinarian or somewhere else, and they'll use your equipment to use it.
Yes. Because what they're doing now is they're using that primitive gun and then reading with a separate item, and the two are not related currently. So what we're doing is giving them an easy way to do the record keeping, a very efficient way to administer the liquids to the animal, a safe way for both the animal and the administrator of it, so you don't get a needle prick, off of whatever you're administering.
Do you have any patent or any protection for the piece of equipment?
Yes, sir. The entire system has an international patent, provisional patent pending right now. I'm in 41 countries with the submission: United States, Canada, Australia, and the European Union. 38 countries in the European Union.
And how will you market and sell the product?
We have contacts within the larger companies. Example is Cargill. There are 4 major companies that end up running the feedlots, both for beef, pork, and the other animals. And we have contacts within Cargill where we'll go onto a property or two for them, prove our worth, and then hopefully they'll spread us throughout their facilities.
Just one more question. How much time and money to get a model that's working?
We'll have, the board that goes and drives the device is in process right now. So within about 4 weeks, we should be able to go inject piglets with it. And we could do the same thing with beef shortly after that. And then we end up having to have all the production tooling to be able to do a full production assembly.
Go ahead, Denise.
Thank you, John. Jim, let me just say great presentation, first of all. Thank you for that. You're very informative because I didn't know a lot about what you were talking about, but you definitely explained it to where I could understand it because it's almost like another language. And you had spoke about you didn't have any competition.
Correct.
So I guess your competition is more like analog opposed to what
Well,
you have.
The syringe that they have with the reader. So they're separate. They're not related in any way. This system relates the data collection and you can generate a verifiable record of everything you're doing with the animal.
So are you the only company that offers this? If you have absolutely no
It
company?
doesn't exist.
It does not
In doing the
exist?
patent searches internationally, we found nothing that was in this genre, if you want to call it that, of product function.
Okay. So would your competition then be your potential customer also, as far as sales, to sell them your product?
Yeah,
comp-
well, I would be spreading it through whatever industry it is, whether it's beef or pork or sheep. We would end up selling it into the either large manufacturers, like for the feedlots. The feedlots themselves are the larger portion of what you might sell to. You would also sell it to ranchers because the castration that they would do, the injections that they would do prior to taking an animal to the feedlot would need the same effort. The co-ops that we'll end up talking with as well would get it into the farmers that are on smaller properties. So we'll try and spread the use of the gun and its record collecting ability throughout each of the animal markets.
Okay. And last question, Jim, so you hadn't had an opportunity to do a field test yet?
The materials that are injected, we've
field
done
trial, I'm
that,
sorry.
but we haven't done a field trial with the animals. When I was in the home healthcare market, I had the same exact pump 15 years ago. So I've done testing, extensive testing, with the technology that I'm using to do the pumping, and I don't really have a problem that it will function as I desire it to.
And as you sell the product, you'll have training?
Yes.
Have someone to train your?
We'll have online training. We'll have either inside or outside reps. Going into the co-ops, like I was saying, we may have an individual who works with a co-op and we train them and they go out and work with the ranchers in their area that might be small enough not to want to buy the gun. They only need it for 2 months. Then he would come out, or he or she would come out and help them with their injections that they need.
Okay. Charles?
Okay. As a guy, I kind of focused. You said it many times in there. You said castration, and as a guy, I'm thinking, what if I accidentally poke myself? And you said it couldn't happen because the needle retracts, but give me a little more confidence that the person using this gun isn't going to accidentally chemically castrate himself.
Okay. First off, the liquid that we'll be using with this gun is an organic castration liquid that's not on the market right now. It is in process. It will be hopefully on the market for pigs within 8 months and for beef within a year. The liquid, you can literally drink it. Won't do a thing to you.
Not going to do it.
Not going to do it. I know 2 individuals that have done this.
Not going to do it.
But with the device, you have to read an RFID tag, and if you pull in the trigger like this, nothing's going to happen. You push it up against the testicle, and pull the trigger, it'll push a needle in and do its duty. So it has to be specifically placed where it needs to go, and if you're holding it up, it's not going to happen. If you were in the process of administering the fluid and you stumble, as you pull that safety ring off the surface, the needle sucks back in, so it becomes a safe device, and it will tell you to continue the injection.
Okay. So a vet is prescribing and providing the chemicals.
Yes, which is the way it's done right now. Yes.
Does this device send this information to a computer that stores the RFID and what's been given?
Yes.
Does it keep it from giving too many?
It can do that, yes. The database that we'll generate would be uploaded at the end of your day.
Okay.
So it's no longer a fresh database on the pump. So at the beginning of each day, it's ready to pull in more data.
But you could accidentally chemically castrate a cow twice.
No, because what we'll end up doing, we'll have the RFID tag in the database, and the system will know the RFID tags that it's touched, and it won't let you, if it reads it and sees an RFID tag that you already castrated yesterday.
But what about today? Could you do it today?
Even today, if it's
Okay.
and the intent is on a feedlot where they have lots of animals, it'll be a live database.
Okay.
So Joe is sticking over here, animal moves over here, and Ed stabs the animal. His isn't going to work because his is already recorded. That's part of what we're going to offer is the service to the feedlots to have a live database available for them.
I'm still curious, how many of you guys are willing to drink this castration liquid? Anybody? Anybody? No? Okay. I'm sorry to stick on this. Needle changes. Does it keep
Yes.
using the same needle over and over?
Depending on the animal, requirements by the FDA, the disposable will come with multiple dispensing needles. You'll also be able to buy the extra ones. Depending on what USDA wants as far as direction, you'll be able to change needles. The pump will also tell you if you're sticking beef and the suggestion is, or your desired interval is 30 animals, the pump will tell you through a Bluetooth headset that change the needle. So you'll be able to, in less than 20 seconds, change a needle.
Okay. Is there any way to produce a proprietary bottle of the chemical that can't be used by anybody else other than on your machine?
The castration liquids, the way the FDA approvals are expected to be released, is it can be administered by a veterinarian or a trained technician with our gun. There aren't any other way to do it. So the castration liquids are specific that way. Other materials that are from other manufacturers, they often have a training session that you have to go do in order to do it. I know several ranchers that, yeah, I know how to do this, and this, but I had to go get a certificate to say that I could do it. There'll be an equivalent training for use of the gun so that you can go out and administer using the gun per the procedures that we set up by the specifications of the liquid manufacturers.
If you, I didn't say this earlier, but if I ask anything that you don't want to share with the world, feel free to say so.
Yes,
How much money did you spend on getting patents put in for 38 countries? That sounds like a lot of money.
The European Union is $6,600. Canada was $1,200. U.S. was about $450 because I already had about $2,600 in the United States and another $1,600 in Australia.
Less than I would have thought. How much money have you has been put into the business so far?
I have support for the prototype. I've got about $75,000 in the prototype so far. I'm due about another $45,000 or $50,000. I owe the software engineer some money, and the board layout individual. He's getting prototypes for me, so I've got to reimburse him for that. I've got about $60,000 that's been given into the company as a whole for doing some minor things
Okay.
a number of months ago.
And what do investors get for the $2 million?
They'll get approximately 10%. That's something we really need to talk about.
And what else did I have? Do you have an exit strategy?
Yes, presently it's an LLC. We're getting ready to change that to an S Corp. And we'll, depending on how big we get, we'll decide how we go public with it or what we're going to do with it. I end up having assistance from a good individual who's been a CEO for several other companies, and he's helping me with the financial strategy of the business from that side.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is there a variety of fluids that will work, or are you just talking castration?
No, castration is only one. There's beef cattle, for example, every one coming into a feedlot gets 6 liquids. Bovine pneumonia serum is one of the ones they give because it's very contagious. So you don't want one bull walking out there with pneumonia and spreading it through a herd. So when they come onto a feedlot property, they give them 6 liquids right off the bat from a preventative measure. So every one of them gets 6 liquids. There are other ones that are given for medical reasons or health reasons if they've got an illness, and those should be able to be dispensed just like any of the other ones. And those specification requirements for needle size, dosages, and everything else are provided by the liquid manufacturer, the veterinary fluid manufacturer.
If you're watching live, you're welcome to send questions through the Facebook thing that you're watching live on. I'll get them and I'll ask those questions for you. Kirsten, now we're going to go to the audience. So Kirsten, if who wants to ask questions from the audience, please make sure you stand up, have the microphone to your face, and look into the camera. Who has questions?
With the data that's captured, is there an auditing process or an entity that this information is submitted to?
Yes, as you pass an animal up through the various people that may raise the animal, they end up having a database that passes along with the animal. So all the data that's collected, what was given on a particular time, that all travels with the animal. Currently, it ends up being a very manual, intensive thing. So we're actually going to be able to give a broader representation of what happened for the particular injection. So it'll be able to be passed up the way with the animal.
Yeah, I have several questions I'd like to ask you. Maybe leave some of them for later. But do you have any testimonial of any farmer or somebody that have used this, or at least have you been able to use your prototype to somehow prove it?
I haven't really had the prototype on a ranch complex or anything. That'll happen in the next few months. We'll be, as soon as we're able to do injections, we'll go into the University of Arkansas, and we'll end up oddly doing pigs up there. So we'll end up having data that we'll build off of that. We'll end up doing, obviously, accuracy testing and everything before that, but we'll end up going and we'll inject the piglets that they have in our test group. And that will be the first application of the device. And then we'll shortly follow that with some beef that are in Canada, for a matter of fact. So we'll end up having several sessions of limited usage and going through what data we collect and what comments are made about the device. So we'll end up having that all, and we'll roll that back into the production tooling as we move forward through the tooling.
And while we're getting ready for the next question here, someone online asked, if you have a question, let Kirsten know and get the microphone, please. Somebody asked if the fluid would leach into the beef. How safe is it for human consumption? I think you answered that again, but somebody asked, so ask again.
Typically for a feedlot, as an example, when they come onto the property, they're given the medications, essentially in the first couple of hours that they're on the property. All of the medications are FDA approved now that would be given, as well as the castration liquids. They'll also be FDA approved. The gun is not required to be FDA approved. It ends up being just as if you were using a syringe, but now you end up recording data with it. So all the fluids that would be given to the animals are FDA approved and have had extensive study to get to that point.
Okay, no other questions from the audience? Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. And I have a different way of looking at things. So I have 3 questions for you.
Okay.
So I'll start for one. About the needles.
Yes.
If you're doing it for pigs and you're also doing it for cattle, I assume they have different types of hides.
Yes.
So does that mean you have different types of needles for the different types of animals that you
Yes.
vaccinate?
Also, the different medications will require different gauge sizes. So we'll have the gauges that are typical for all the medications. The gun itself is able to advance the needle the desired depth. It does that automatically. So if you want to inject a fluid that's 1.5 inches under the surface of the skin, you can get there. If you want to go 1/4 inch, you can do that. Piglet testicles only 3/4 of an inch long, so you go in 3/8 of an inch. So you'll be able to put the material exactly where you want it, and then we'll use standard veterinary needles, so that we'll have the gauges that the liquid manufacturers require.
Okay. The next question is, do you have to use your vaccines or liquids, or can someone use your device but use any type of vaccine or
Yes,
liquid that they have?
the liquids, I'm not producing the liquids.
Okay.
What I'm doing is providing them the tool to be able to accurately dispense it and record the data that relates to that animal.
Okay.
And then any of the fluids that you might give to an animal now, you'd be able to, they will give a recommended dosage, needle size, everything else.
2 more questions.
Okay.
Sorry. Have you thought about, you talked about having international patents.
Yes.
So have you thought about, you talked about pigs, you talked about cattle, you talked about kangaroos. Have you thought about, say, for in Africa, the big game industry, when they have to put down the lions and vaccinate and other things? Have you thought about that, or as that is a possible another
It
industry?
could, if you're doing something for 1 animal or 2 animals, it may not be cost effective because you'd end up shooting it with a dart that has the needle injection, so you're not putting yourself in harm's way. Example is the city of Dallas spends $2 million a year castrating stray dogs. They could save $500,000 by using the liquid castration, but they can also use our gun to administer it so it can be done quicker and record that RFID tag on the animal that they placed on the animal.
Okay. Just a thought that might be a very expensive industry, so they might be able
Oh,
to
yes.
afford it. Now, and my last question is, you talked about having an international patent that covers X amount of countries.
Right.
So do you have a strategy for going international yet?
Other than knowing where the primary location for pigs in Europe are, or sheep, in Europe, the sheep in Australia, the other animals that might be around, we haven't really gone that far. We have contacts in Australia that are in the sheep association, so we'll end up being able to get into the root of a given country that has a good call for the device.
Okay. I guess I'll wait for the advisory part, because one of the things is, for 25 years, my job was to help U.S. companies sell their products internationally with the U.S. government. And so I want to give you some advice on how you can leverage your government and resources to do a lot of what you're doing and getting you into certain markets. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
While we're getting the next person over there, my friend Jason Diamo has volunteered to drink the liquid. So as soon as we have
Ooh,
some,
we have one candidate. Very good.
Jason would love to test that for us. David Visser asked, what is the withdrawal period? I don't know what that means myself.
If it's withdrawal of the needle, it's as a veterinarian or a rancher would pull a needle out, so you can control the extraction. Is that?
That's not what he's asking.
Okay, what's he asking?
You need a mic.
Kirsten, you want to give him a microphone? Have you been a rancher, sir?
Yes.
All right.
The withdrawal period refers to the period from the time you inoculate to the time you can slaughter.
Yes. That depends on the individual fluid. That's not something we control. So each of the medications or whatever that would be given to an animal, they will specify how long you have to keep the animal upright before you can put it to slaughter. It's something that we don't have control over.
Thank you for being able to clarify that for us, sir. I had no earthly idea what that meant.
You did a great job at doing so.
Hello. So I don't know if this was discussed in the presentation, but can you discuss a little bit about your sales and distribution model, about how you're going to actually move the guns,
Okay.
and move the systems?
We'll end up having an e-commerce system so it can be sold off a website. We'll have inside sales to do that. We'll go out and visit with our personnel the Cargills in a given area, and we have, like I said, we have contact inside of Cargill. That's why I use them as an example. So we'll be able to do that. We also have one of the major veterinary medicine manufacturers very interested in our gun and the castration liquids from our other company, and they will end up having 2,500 people around the world. So they could provide sales people to sell the devices.
Okay, so have you explored like a distributorship model at all, or the feed store model, and then
other than getting into the first one is to get into the beef and pork industry at the major level. Then we'll start going into the smaller ranchers and the co-ops and everything else. So we'll end up having individuals that might work for a co-op, and we would train them how to use the system, and then have them be a local representative in a given area.
okay. And then another question. We covered the different forms of livestock. Is there any possible way to possibly do something like this for chickens? Because I know there's
I haven't
you don't really
researched that
tag
yet.
chickens, I guess, the same way, and
Yes.
you're not doing the same kind of things. But
Right.
I think
They do multiple injections as well, but I don't know the particular method that they use to do that.
maybe
So
hook it up to a Roomba or something.
Yeah.
And have it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any others? Ken?
You talked about being able to track when an animal moves from one ranch to another ranch or whatever. Is that information stored on the cloud?
it could be stored various ways. They end up passing it right now. But I don't know what medium they really use. We are proposing to have the data available on the cloud, have it to where you've got an identification for the animal, but not really say who the rancher was that raised it, so you can see the data related to what was given to it. So we end up working through privacy concerns about who the physical ranchers are, but provide the data, to researchers or whatever. We do want to get into that part of it, because part of what we're doing is making the food chain, more economical, safer for us and everything else, and more humane for the animals.
From the internet, Jason says David Burford needs to be a test subject. I'm not sure who that is. I guess that's something in the news right now. Y'all are getting it, I'm not? Okay. David Visser says, I've given over 10,000 shots. I thought you were a pilot, David. Is the needle on the gun reusable? I think you covered that, but go ahead.
It'll depend on what the material is, what the animal is. Obviously, pig skin is much softer than a cow or a bull might be. So the interval of how many injections might be done will vary on the animal, and we'll be able to provide the additional needles that might need to be with it. So the basic disposable will have a couple of needles in it, but you can also buy extras if your interval requires more needles.
Okay, another one from the audience.
What was the price? The price?
Price?
The cost?
Guns $12.95, and the disposable is $7.95.
So this should be very easy to justify from a cost perspective, right?
Should be.
Do you have that information available, or is that information that you can get to make it easy for you to even sell your product?
Yeah, that part of going through an NDA, and we could talk about that further. But
One last one in the audience? No? Okay, go ahead.
Jim, do you have a sales goal in your 1-year sales goal at a little less than 1,300 a system? Do you have a goal in mind?
I would like to sell like 2,000 the first year, but the prospect of selling 10,000 the second or third year is very good. So 2,000 guns end up being about $1 million in profit, and then the disposables that drive them as well would be an additional income, and that would be reoccurring.
Right.
Okay, we're going on to the advice section. So now put the virtual tape on your mouth. Same thing in the audience. When it gets to you, please don't ask any questions. He can't talk. So, John, you're up with advice.
Well, a couple of thoughts. One, I would talk with an expert at raising capital and let them give you some advice on how to raise funds. You certainly need to let an investor know when he's going to get his money back, how much money he's going to be making, and some good projections. You talk about $2 million gets you 10%. That means you're talking about a $20 million company, and there's actually how you're going to get there. Sales over time. And I wonder if some of these companies that produce fluids might be good investors in your product, good partners for you, because they certainly could use it. They would, if they can present a good way to use the fluids, that just makes it easier for them to sell.
Denise?
Again, I just, want to tell you, great presentation. I've learned a lot about something that I really didn't know anything about. But just sitting in this seat from my experience and even sitting with people like John or Charles and different investors, I would definitely, what John said, would have some projections for them to really know what they're getting out of it when they're having to put up so much money. And your goal of selling 2,000 units or 2,000 systems in the first year, I think that your marketing plan or sales strategy is going to be very, very key in having the right type of salespeople on your team to get that done. And I'm thinking some of your competition right now would be some great investors or some great partners, or even if you had like affiliate marketers, and you spoke about that, independent representatives and stuff to really drive those sales for you. Thank you. Charles?
I'm trying to figure out who David Burford was, but apparently it was a friend of the guy who was posting the comments, and his friend came on and was watching too. So, so I'm going to go along with what Denise said. Your presentation was fantastic. It answered all the questions for the most part. I mean, some things I just needed to clarify. I stuck with that castration thing, but it's just me. Yeah, no thanks. I'm very interested, frankly. I think it comes down to, and if you've seen me before, you hear what I say when it comes to valuation, and I don't think it's very reasonable that you will have put in, say, $100,000 or something and want to raise $2 million and give 10% of the company for that. I don't find that very reasonable at all. A typical angel investor, and I guess I'm a typical angel investor, has roughly $500,000 that they want to deploy $50,000 to $100,000 at a time. So you're looking for quite a few angel investors. I think I can get some of my friends on board if we get the valuation number to maybe come up with a quarter of that or something. But I am that interested. The key for me is that, and this came from Jay Rogers, a guy that's John and I's long-term friend. Jay Rogers taught me, and before he taught me this, I pretty much lost in every angel investment I did that I didn't control. And afterwards, until a couple of months ago, I said I haven't lost in any, and well, I finally did lose in one. But anyway, his advice to investors is that you either have liquidity or control as a angel investor if you're putting all of the money in. So if a group of us were putting in the $2 million, at least if I was part of the group, I would expect control of the business while our money is at risk. So how I typically do that, which makes more sense to the entrepreneur, is we agree on what return that I want on, or that the investors want on the money on an annualized basis. As soon as we have our capital back and that return back, that our stock then would revert to another number more like your 10%. And that's what makes sense to me. That gives me, as the angel investor, control while you're spending my money. And the main thing that I'm looking at is, and I'll tell you some horror stories that have happened. I invested in a restaurant, and this guy took my money and started a catering business on the side that I didn't get any return from. And then he closed the business, and I lost, and he kept his catering business the whole time. So things like that happen to angel investors, and so those are two of my rules. Is first of all that I own you. You're not going to go out and do anything else. This is your full-time business. And second of all, while my money is at risk, I have a controlling vote. And when I'm looking for an entrepreneur to invest in, I'm investing in you more than I am your business. I have to believe that you have the drive and the passion to go out and do it. So I'm not going to micromanage you in business. I just want to make sure that the money is being spent in ways that we all agree that the money should be spent. If you want to give yourself a $250,000 bonus, before we've sold anything, that's not going to be so exciting. Or if you want to go out and buy a new sports car, and all of these things happen, I want to make sure that the money is going towards things that are going to further our combined investment. Love to talk to you separately, sign your non-disclosure agreements, and see where we can go from that. But again, loved your presentation, love what you're doing. Little nervous about getting a little skin prick, but it's exciting to me, and I think you got a great idea, a great system, and I think you're going to be very rich very soon. So we'll go to the audience for advice, please. And by the way, people that are watching online too, please keep posting your comments or your advice now, and I'll be glad to share that too.
You had mentioned to me earlier that you were a veteran. And as a veteran, there are a lot of resources that are available to you right now. So I would suggest to you that you get involved with Honor, Courage, Commitment, or HCC. They have an entrepreneur program. They will give you resources to help you get certified with the government. There's 6 certifications that you would need in order to tap into those resources. So that would be the first advice that I would give you. You have my card, so I can give you those resources as well. The second thing is, as part of your pitch deck presentation, I would suggest doing a video, like an animated video. It's not very expensive, and there's various people here that do videos, or even a whiteboard video, to depict some of the things that you're talking about. So the 2 different guns, going through the process versus one gun, and what that entails. So something that people can actually see and grasp a little bit more of what you're trying to portray. Even though you did a really great job, for me it was a little bit boring. I understood it all because as a veteran I volunteered in a couple cattle ranches, and I myself have injected 350 heads of cattle. I am totally taken care of for Blackfoot, flu, and something else that only affects cows, because I stuck myself a couple times. So I understand what the process is, and so I would have loved to have had your device last year. So anyways, those are the 2 things that I would suggest that you do. So the whiteboard video or a slide presentation or something just depicting the process, and then getting you certified through the government, the different veteran organizations, so that you can tap into those resources.
Ken, be sure and give her a little bit of money for making that recommendation.
So this is the part what I wanted to tell you. So what I'm going to say.
Microphone a little closer, please.
What I'm going to say is export.gov. U.S. government, your tax dollars pay for it. U.S. embassies around the world help you find joint venture partners, distributors in international markets. They actually help vet them, and it's very minimal cost for a U.S. company to do that. So when you're ready to go international and you're ready to look for partners, that's a great thing to do. They have an export assistance center here in Dallas. I used to work for them. Start building that relationship now. A lot of times they're going to look for, your sales before you take it internationally. But if you start building that relationship now, there are different things that happen. And then my final thing is STEP grant, which is put out by SBA. It's administered by the state of Texas. It's $10,000. I think they administer it every year. It's free. It's first come, first serve, and it's for you to use to go internationally. That's the point of that money. Anyway, thank you.
I think as far as your presentation goes, you would have an absolute grand slam if you just talked about investor payback. If you told me, hey, at year 1, we're going to have this amount in sales, you're going to get a 4% ROI. Year 2, it's going to look like this. It would be a grand slam across the board. So hope that helps.
And I was just going to mention we've all kind of danced around it, but because you're doing vaccinations, you can go straight to the government. And there are a lot of grants. You don't have to be a veteran. Definitely do some research with that with your investors, because the government is looking for things under the USDA, under the Food and Drug Administration. As long as you're talking vaccinations and ways to do that, that make healthier food for us, they give all kinds of grants and help. So I just wanted to mention that.
Hello. Next time you give the presentation, I probably want to outline my sales process a little more. I would say we're going to this live. We're planning on going to, X amount of livestock shows in 2019. We're planning on doing this. We're planning on doing this to market. We're planning on it was a lot of it was really product based, but ultimately the sales come from the selling of the products and the selling of the disposables. So I would have spent a little more time on this is how I actually generate the revenue for this business, and from there you can do it and go into the projected revenue from the sales of these products.
Anyone else from the audience with advice?
Is my last question for you.
No question, it would be advice.
I'm sorry. From patent pending, you said that you had it read. Well, this is going to be a question. So,
You got advice?
no.
Well, thank you. Anyone else with advice? Okay, then Jim, back to you. Now you get 2 minutes to sum up on any of the advice you got. Any feedback to it?
I didn't go into percentages from sales kind of on purpose, because I was trying to make sure I fit into the 15 minutes. And so I wanted to hit all the high points with that. I very much agree. Come sign an NDA, and I will talk with you about those individual items. The prototype as a whole will end up, like I said, being able to be used very shortly. Putting things onto the website that can show that, we'll end up having those with the website once we get a little bit closer to having a production assembly. I didn't want to put it in the marketplace before I had the tooling in place.
Well, Jim, you did a fantastic job. I hope to talk with you more, and let's talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Everybody give Jim a big round of applause. So 2 weeks from tonight, Hollywood Nights right here. We'll have it out on Facebook shortly if you've ever been interested in what it takes to get involved in investing in a motion picture. I know I'm looking forward to learn about it, so hope you're interested in coming out and joining us. And we're looking at either the 14th or the 16th, which we will put out shortly on our presentation for August next month. So thank you for coming out. Those that are here live, the drinks will be coming out shortly. Hang around, network with people that you've heard advice from, make some deals. I love it when business happens at the boardroom. Thanks for coming, and good night.